Our top story this hour, hundreds of National Guard troops are now patrolling the streets of Washington, D.C. after the president's decision to crack down on crime in the city. NBC News senior national security correspondent Courtney Kube has the details.
Hundreds of National Guard troops reporting for duty, acting on President Trump's orders after he declared a crime emergency, activating 800 Guard members and instituting a 30-day federal takeover of D.C. police, despite police statistics that show violent crime is declining here. We've been watching members of the D.C. National Guard trickle in one by one all day here at the D.C. Armory. Soon as many as 200 at any time will be in neighborhoods like this, where a defense official tells NBC News they'll be supporting law enforcement with activities like crowd management, perimeter control, and other security assistance. Most Guard members won't be armed and won't be making arrests, according to the defense official. Instead, their support is intended to free up law enforcement to fight crime. The White House says its push is already well underway.
Last night, approximately 850 officers and agents were surged across the city. They made a total of 23 arrests.
Those arrests include homicide and drug distribution, according to the White House, which also says homeless people could be jailed if they don't comply with efforts to clear encampments. Some Democrats slamming the move as presidential overreach.
This is about the president playing king, trying to be the authoritarian leader, the dictator.
But after meeting with Attorney General Pam Bondi, the city's Democratic mayor striking a cooperative tone.
If and while we have this federal surge, we're going to put those officers to good use.
D.C. residents we spoke to had mixed reactions.
It's unnecessary and frightening. There's crime in any city, and this is not solving a crime problem.
I don't see the need for it. At the same time, if it makes the streets safer, so be it.
NBC's Courtney Kube reporting there. The National Review, a conservative publication, weighing in all this with an editorial titled, "DC's Problems Require a Long-Term Fix." The editors of the National Review write, National Guard deployments are by their very nature temporary. Whether in a month or in 3 months, the troops will be sent home. The Guardsmen might be able to free up some police resources, but we are likely to see a lot of them standing post outside of federal buildings. That may look like a tough response, but to the citizen soldiers of the Guard, called away from families, jobs, and schools, it will seem more like a waste of their time. Washington, D.C.'s problems with street crime and homeless encampments are, at their heart, failures of local government to fulfill its most basic responsibilities. D.C. needs more cops. It needs tougher shoplifting laws. It needs sane policies to control the growth of tent cities and vagrant encampments. These are chronic problems that, unfortunately, are not susceptible to instant fixes. Let's bring in Pentagon correspondent for the New York Times, Helene Cooper. Her latest piece is titled, "Trump Pulls Military into Another Political Issue." Helene, good morning. So you heard from Courtney Kube there talking about what the National Guard troops will and will not be doing. We could look back to just a couple of months ago in Los Angeles. National Guard sent in as crowds gathered around some of these ICE raids. By and large, the National Guard troops, though they did their jobs well, didn't have a whole lot to do while they were there. Do you expect to see more of the same in Washington?
Hi, good morning, and thank you for having me. A lot of this, an enormous amount of this is for show. I do not expect to see the National Guard troops will be showing up. They'll be, they've already started showing up around monuments, places where the public can see them as a show of force. But the reality is that for a president who likes to present himself as tough on crime, the military is the perfect institution to go to because they show up fast and they show up, troops show up camera ready. It's a perfect made for TV moment in which you have camouflage wearing troops, some of them with guns, with M16s, and they're going to show up looking like they're tough and ready to go. But the reality is these troops are not going to be actually practicing law enforcement. That would require a whole list of constitutional workarounds and legal workarounds, and they're not going to be doing that. Similar to the troops in Los Angeles, they're going to be providing more of a support role, and they will free up local law enforcement to the degree, even the critics of President Trump's moves say that to the degree that these troops can free up local law enforcement, that can't be a bad thing. But they are, I think you had this in your segment, they are going to be temporary. They are going to be very TV ready. And that's kind of, at the end of the day, what you're going to see. I was talking yesterday to some military officials who said that the troops are going to be 100 to 150 to 200 on the streets of D.C. at a time. Now, out of the 800, the rest of them will be working in shifts. So 800 have been deployed, but you're only going to see between 100 and 200 on the streets at any one time, dispersed as they are in groups of maybe 5, 10, 15. That's not that many. And that's not that many in a city the size of Washington, D.C., with 700,000 residents and many, many more visitors. So I think you'll see them where tourists are. You'll see them, taking photos with tourists as they were last night. But you're not going to see them actually, practicing law enforcement. And a lot of this, I think, is for show.
Yeah, optics a big part of it. We know White House officials were very pleased with some of the images they got out of Los Angeles when National Guard troops were deployed there. They're hoping for something similar now. Mike Barnicle, we heard just in Courtney's piece there's some D.C. residents who welcome this. Others, including a few we had on the show yesterday, emotionally saying, no, we don't want this. And I think there is a sense from many that whether or not it helps with crime on the ground, there's a sense of federal overreach. And there's a fear that this president, who has talked in the past about using the U.S. military on American civilians, on the streets of American cities, this would be a first step, perhaps, to deploying in other cities as well. And for some, that's not the sign of a healthy democracy.
Well, of course not. I mean, and part of this is, Helene was just talking about it, part of it is performance art from the President of the United States. It fits his personality that he can do this, that he can insert troops, uniformed troops of the United States government onto city streets to desensitize people across the rest of the country. He's mentioned Baltimore and Chicago, to sort of desensitize people to the idea that we're going to have uniformed troops on the streets of various cities, depending on the crime rate. If I were living in Washington, D.C. and lived in Georgetown, I wouldn't be at all worried, because the crime rate is really low. If I lived in Anacostia, across the river, across the South Capitol Street Bridge, where the crime rate is a little different than it is in Northwest Washington, I wouldn't be displeased to see a uniformed presence, even though it was a National Guard person on my block. There's a sense of security when you see someone who symbolizes safety or strength, a uniformed National Guards person who he's not chartered, or he or she is not chartered to make an arrest or anything like that, but just the physical presence of a uniform might have some people feeling a bit better about their chances of going to the grocery store and not getting mugged. And Helene, I don't know where you live in the district, if you live in the district, but the performance art aspect of this is really what has captured the headlines.
Which is what Trump wants. He's very, I think the White House and the Trump administration is very happy at how much this has captured the headlines and the performance art. This is exactly the sort of thing that the White House likes. The optics of it, the fact that you have all of these news programs and headlines talking about Trump, and it makes him feel as if he's appearing tough on crime, which is where exactly what he desires. At the end of the day, though, there are a lot of other questions that need to be asked, including where does this leave our military? President Trump has increasingly pulled the military into political issues, and crime is not necessarily a political issue at all. But when you continue to deploy troops for every single, including, let's send them after drug cartels in Latin America. Let's send them into ICE raids. Let's send them into all of these different issues. You start to ask, what is the purpose of the American military? Is it directed more at domestic adversaries or at foreign ones?
Helene, let's stay